And here's the carburetor I ordered, and you can just see right there, I just slid it on and installed the choke lever right here on this ear, and then the throttle lever right there on that ear. And then here is the ignition coil that came in, and I don't have it hooked up to anything, but I just took the screws and put it in, and then this gap right here is 3 millimeter, which, if you don't know, is the size of a business card. That usually almost always works with these kind of coils. So I just put the business card in, and it's kind of a feeler gauge, and then tightened it down. So we are basically ready to see if this thing has spark. And something I noticed here when going over the engine was on the throttle plate, you can see right here that the throttle cable and choke cable, it's a choke and throttle cable, came in from the bottom. And this was weird to me because everything that I researched showed it coming in from the top, as you can see right here. So what I did was I hooked it all up, and nothing was working right. The throttle wouldn't work at all. The choke was working backwards. So I thought, there's no way somebody could hook this up backwards. But then I thought, you know, probably the same guy that thought it was a good idea to paint all these hoses and wires, everything with this crappy pink orange paint, probably could do something that silly. So I went ahead and disconnected the throttle cable, and I've just got it hanging out right here, as you can see. And I ran it in the correct way that I've seen in all the manuals and all the pictures online. And lo and behold, with a little bit of adjustment, the choke and throttle works almost perfect. So this actually was hooked up backwards. So if you guys ever buy something like this, don't underestimate just how silly the person working on it before you, whether he was a quote-unquote professional mechanic or not. So anyway, we are ready to go ahead and let's get a spark plug. Let's get the spark plug out so it'll be easier to turn this. Put a drill on this right here and see and check and see if we've got spark. It's probably going to be a little difficult to do with one hand, but okay, so there's that. And we will go ahead and just install it in here. And then let me get a tripod, so I'm not going to be able to do both of these with one hand, so let me go get the tripod. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see this. You probably can't, but I turned the lights off so we can see if it sparks easier. Get the drill on it, let's see. That's a very good sign. All right, so I reinstalled the plug, hooked up the new coil, and we're just gonna dump some gas right down the carburetor throat here and just see if we can get any kind of pop or anything from the motor. Okay, so off camera, I tried to figure this out. This is a different plug than what was in it. I pulled this out of like a little Honda small engine I have over there, and I had a theory that this drill, even though it's my biggest drill I've got, can only spin this thing barely fast enough once it gets up to speed to generate the spark. And so that's with the plug out and basically zero compression. So what I hypothesized was when I was putting the plug in, that the added resistance really slows that drill down, and I can't get this spinning fast enough to actually jump the spark. And so I pulled another plug out. I put the original plug in to bump the compression, and I just verified it. I spin this thing as fast as I can, and there is no spark. So I'm not really sure what else to do except put it back together and see if, you know, that initial burst by hand can fire it. Maybe I can use an air tool on it. I'm going to have to think about it, but that's what's going on at the moment. So we may not be over yet. I just got to figure out a way to spin this a little faster. Okay, so here's where we're at. I had to end up putting all this back together because there is no way my drill has enough power or speed to spark the spark plug. So it needs a real quick pull from the actual manual flywheel pulls. So I went ahead and put all this back together and then tested it by making sure that when you pulled this, it sparked even under compression, which is what was happening the last time. When the plug was out and it didn't have any compression, it spun fast enough to spark the spark plug, but as soon as you put it in, the drill didn't have enough power to rotate the engine and spark it, so it has to be manually pulled, real quick burst. So we will go ahead and give it a try and see if this works. So I'll put you in the stand and shoot a little bit of starting fluid in there, and we'll give it a try. Oh, I think it might fire. All right, so it fires. So getting the coil, setting the right gap on the coil, picking up the carb, we still have to hook that up and make sure the carb runs. But basically this thing just fired up. So we are, I think, we're in really good shape. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the door up and then point this outside, and we're gonna hit it with a little bit more gas and see what happens. Let's give it another shot here. All right, I think what we ought to do is hook up a fuel source to it and see if we can get it to run constant. All right, so I have no idea what kind of gunk is in the bottom of this, so I've just, what I've done here is I've put a little catch basin, and we're just gonna take this down, and I'm gonna put a little bit of gas in here, make sure there's not any big leaks or anything, let it come through the fuel filter and see what we're getting out on this side, just before running it into the engine. So it's flowing through the fuel filter, and it's coming out there, and it actually looks really good. So I'm just going to go ahead and let this, it's going to stop here in just a second. You can see it's bubbling right there. So we're just going to let this clear out the line a second, and then I'm going to fill it up a little bit. And we'll hook it up back here under the carburetor, and then we'll see if the new carburetor I got. And if that runs, we may have something special here. All right, I've given it some time. I've got the fuel line hooked up here, and I've given it some time to fill the float bowl. I'm going to go ahead and still spray a little bit of starting fluid just to help it catch, and then hopefully pull whatever fuel through the carburetor that needs to. So I've got the throttle, because this is kind of hooked up janky right now. I've got it, just a little bit off idle. We got to be ready to shut it down as well. Which I'm a little nervous about, because I'm not sure if this key works, so we'll just have to see what happens here. Okay. It looks like we have brought this thing back from the dead for very little. Wow, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to take it all in right now. I just don't understand how these machines go to professional lawn places, service facilities, and they just get thrown out like they're not able to be saved. I don't get it. Okay, so I actually pulled it back outside, and what we're gonna do is, here is the freewheel valves, right here and right here. I've already run them in, and I'm just gonna snug them up and make sure they're tight, because running the motor like that should have purged the air out of the line, and we do have hydraulic fluid in there. So in theory, all we got to do, I looked under it and the pulleys are spinning perfectly. They're not damaged or wobbling or anything like that. So I think we might as well just set you up on the tripod and let's just go for broke. Let's start this thing up and see if for 60 bucks plus the cost of a few parts, so probably maybe $150 total in this, maybe less. Will this thing actually, is the hydraulic system actually working? So let me put you up on a tripod, we'll start it, and let's move it around and see. This is amazing. So really, I'm not sure what the shop thought, because the engine's running perfect. It actually runs as well and as smooth as my dad's newer Scag that's only a couple years old with 200 hours. So the motor seems great. The hydraulics, they're a little finicky. I think it's because it's, that whole dented area up there. Let me show you. So this area here that's dented, I think all this linkage is kind of bent and tweaked. You can kind of see it. So the right one is a little touchy, and I think it has to do with this adjustment. So other than that, though, the system was very responsive. It goes backwards, forwards. Okay, so this is all I need to see. In the next video, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to try to figure out how to bend that thing back, and I've got some ideas. If any of you guys got ideas, please let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to figure out how to bend that back, and then probably be stripping this thing down and repainting it and, turning it into a super cool mower. And then who knows what we'll do with it from there. So if you enjoy what you're seeing, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.